Andy Nightingale, welcome to the Sustainable Act.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, great to be here, Smiley.
Thank you for being on the show. I'm so excited for our conversation. Every conversation I have with you in real life is like always so wonderful. So I'm just so thrilled to sit down and do this podcast and, learn more about what you're doing. Hopefully others, like our audience, will learn more about, your show and everything you're doing. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, you were going to say something.
No, I'm just happy to be here.
And we have Chloe, our mascot, that's joining you.
Yep.
She's
our little sidekick, apparently.
Yeah.
Not our dog.
Not our dog. Not actually our dog.
So you are also fellow podcaster. So, I'm so excited to sit down with you. But let's just start with introductions. Andy, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. So my name is Andy. I work as an assistant director in the Vancouver film industry. And Nightingale and I have created a podcast called BIPOC Credits that interviews BIPOC crew members working in the film industry. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but Nightingale, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Nightingale. I am the other half of BIPOC Credits, co-founder and producer. I am a performer, multidisciplinary artist, and mental health advocate. So hello.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I'm just joined by such great company. So I just want to get right into it. Let's talk about BIPOC Credits. So what is it? How did it start? Where the idea came from?
Well, the idea started when, in the early stages of COVID, when we were already going back to work, and there was an influx of production. So there were people who were getting upgraded and not really knowing what to expect in their job, myself included, because I got upgraded to a second AD position, and I had good mentors, but I didn't. It would have been nice to have a resource to go to know what to expect, to kind of eliminate that imposter syndrome a little bit, and talk about those deeper ideas like imposter syndrome or confidence and how to build self-esteem, things like that, in your position. And so I went to Nightingale and told her about this idea of holding a podcast that talks about different positions in film, not just actor or director, because there's already so much content about that, but even in head of department roles in the film industry, like assistant directing or like gaffing or key gripping, things like that. And that way there's a resource for people who are moving up or who want to get into the industry to listen and be able to see whether or not that role aligns with them, and then two, if it does, then be able to understand what they have to do and have the mindset of how to excel in their position. And so that's where BIPOC Credits was conceived, and then we funded ourselves for the first couple of years to just learn how to podcast and get it out there. That's kind of where we're at now. We've been doing it for a couple of years.
We also have a newsletter and a very active social media. So our newsletter just has all of the resources for grants, other podcasts, opportunities, mentorship, festivals, just so that everyone's always... We've heard some people who have said, we don't know where they are. And a part of me feels well, I'm from Ontario and I did a really nice Google search. It kind of appears on the first page. So if I can find it, you can too. But if you can't, I guess I'll put it on a newsletter for you.
There's a lot of resources out there.
There are over 200 organizations about film in BC.
Exactly. I guess the whole idea for BIPOC Credits is to be able to have a platform where BIPOC creators can go to learn about things, learn about crew roles, learn about grants available, learn about events opening up, and just one big resource for all of that. And so that's kind of what we've created, with Nightingale doing the newsletter and the social media, keeping track of all of those things, which includes like grant openings and stuff like that too. So that's been extremely helpful, even like for me.
That's amazing. Like, no, we've covered a lot here. Like, I think taking what you said in the, in terms of the backstory of how BIPOC Credits started, it was, it's also that representation and being able to see yourself in certain positions, because as a filmmaker myself and someone that's worked on set, that's something that I also struggled with. We've been seeing a lot of diversity on screen, yet behind the screen, it's a different story. And especially those in those key creative roles and also just leaders on set. I think having a platform like your podcast is now allowing other BIPOC individuals to see themselves excelling in these roles or climbing, the ladder in film. And then also then going into sort of the solutions you're creating, the accessibility towards programs and grants. That's a huge aspect as well. I think it can be very challenging for newcomers to the industry or emerging filmmakers or just BIPOC creatives to access those, resources. And
absolutely, yeah.
You're just playing a part in having another outlet, I think, in terms of, like you mentioned, there already are over 200 organizations. There's a lot of now programs coming out for BIPOC creatives, but having just another platform in your community that you've been building is now able to view all these other programs is amazing, and I'm sure appreciated.
And how I like to see it as well is it's another platform, but it's a platform that boosts the platforms that already exist. And I think that's important because our the media landscape, which is something we'll talk about later, I'm sure, but it's so saturated, right? And so with so much content available, how do you find the content that will help you? And I think having a few very specific places that you can go to that is reliable, that okay, if I'm looking for this, then I can find it here. That makes it a lot easier to access those other opportunities that other organizations are building. And Nightingale has done a great job in creating this platform for the social media.
Oh yeah, thanks. But I think what's really important is how accessible everything has been, and also just showcasing it already exists, because sometimes I'm seeing people saying, I want to start my own organization about so and so. Well, it already exists, so why don't you just hop on there and help them? They probably want more hands on the ground.
Yeah. Or create an organization that boosts those organizations.
Yeah. Rather than recreate the wheel, it's joining forces and being stronger together.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think what you've done is you're part of this bigger ecosystem that's existing, and I think it's part of what aligns so much with the Sustainable Act and the work I've been doing is because this is part of sustainability, is that ecosystem of representation and equity and diversity in all aspects, whether in the creative forces or behind the scenes or, whatever that may look like, access to opportunities and resources. So yeah, thank you for what you've been doing for the last few years. And I know it's just growing more and just, getting bigger, and I'm excited to see the growth of it.
Thank you, Smiley.
Thanks.
So I know we've been talking a lot about funding resources and things. Let's talk about storytelling and community engagement. So I know you've been partnering with some awesome organizations and initiatives like DGC and the Vancouver Asian Film Festival. And can you elaborate more on these partnerships and what makes it meaningful and the importance of these partnerships?
I do want to add on what I was talking about earlier, which is boosting these different organizations. The really great thing about doing that is that they like you. If you help them,
relationship building
is that's just how it works. And so because you build such a good relationship by just supporting them and supporting these different organizations, they end up wanting to boost you up as well.
What I've also noticed that we didn't see other organizations just sharing each other. It was kind of a scarcity mindset, maybe. I don't know. But when I was on social media trying to do our podcast, when we started doing that, we were getting messages of people being shocked, being like, oh, thank you. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they would share our stuff, and then we would start seeing them share other people's things too. So the ecosystem just keeps growing.
It definitely feels like the film industry in Vancouver has just started to become more and more like encouraging to each other, more
Collaborative.
but maybe that's just because of my limited scope of the industry. I don't know.
I think from what I've seen and experienced, it's a small community here, and so it is like wonderful to be part of that network. And I think compared to other industries around the world, like most likely, like we've seen each other at various events and things. Like we were in Victoria together, we were like wherever, like we usually end up running into each other, and I think it's just part of that like community. And we're so like small here that we know each other, and again, like what you're saying, it's just building upon that. But in terms of the collaboration piece, like I'm still learning about that piece too. Like in sustainability, where the values we hold is very much collaboration over competition. And I think with everything, it should have that sort of, again, where it makes sense, because of course we get, competing or businesses and all, but in terms of like diversity and sustainability, like we win together if we all are winning, and so.
Absolutely. Do you find that the sustainability community, especially the film community, they're all pretty supportive of each other, or
and like again, if they're not, it's like it's hard to, I think, justify having that sort of like space or spot in that community, because again, we're only going to thrive more if we're all supporting each other. And so as leading sustainability in the industry, that's always something I've kept on the forefront, is that we have to support, like, business competition aside, if there's studios competing, like fair enough, that's not like I don't get involved in that, but sustainability, we have to join forces and support each other, share information, because it's not a tick in the box. Like it's not a, oh my god, look at us, we're the best. It's our planet, it's our lives, it's our well-being that we're really, like, we have to worry about. We have to put that on the forefront. And so I think it's the same for diversity, equity, inclusion as well. That
for sure,
I'm sure you've seen, there's like people that are just trying to check the box, and it gives me a bit of the ick when that's the intention behind certain decisions. And I think we need to move past that and just be more welcoming, I guess.
I think it started out like that, but I think there's a huge shift to get out of that headspace, of that mindset of like just checking a box and like really digging down to like culturally being like appropriate and making sure that the project is run in like the best respectable way possible. Though not every show is like that, I've seen like a huge shift with just like the productions that I've been on, and just the shows that we've been watching, like Shogun, for example. I hear there was like
Shogun?
Yeah, Shogun. There was like cultural, like a couple of cultural consultants on the project that were like full time, and every morning they would do a ritual. I wasn't on the show, so I can't speak like too much on it, but just like from what I heard, it was like a really impressive feat, and it really shows in the show itself.
Yeah, no, totally. You feel that cultural shift, and just even in the way that we're working and are around each other, I think, right? How do you find that BIPOC Credits is contributing to that evolution, or like changing that sort of landscape of diversity and all this that we're seeing in the industry?
I think it's the fact that, again, our information is so accessible that it's not just towards BIPOC people, it's for anyone. So we have had people who say, oh, I'm not BIPOC, can I take part in these resources? And like, it's fine. Like the information's available for everyone.
There's also Creative BC Creative Pathways, which I'm sure you are aware of, but Creative Pathways helps people find jobs. Where I like to see BIPOC Credits fitting into that is, once these people have gotten the jobs, or in order to figure out whether or not those jobs are right for the people, they can go to BIPOC Credits to listen to what these jobs entail,
I wonder what has been like a highlight so far for you with the podcast, or even what's come out of the podcast, because I know well, actually, I want to hear more about, like, you know, you're at these events, at festivals, at different sort of like initiatives. Have you noticed that that's because of BIPOC credits, or is that like through the work you're doing? Like, I would love to know where that sort of started, and maybe like words of wisdom for people that are looking to, you know, also get out there and network.
Why we go to events is we really love supporting indie filmmakers. We love watching movies, and we're also filmmakers ourselves. So going to these events is a great way for us to meet and support indie filmmakers, and also talk to the BIPOC community as well as highlighting various programs like we did at Whistler, and just collaborate in a way and just really showcase more of BC's film industry.
Having a platform to be able to connect with people and to talk to people about something that you're all kind of passionate about. Being able to go to these events, and we capture media at these events because we want to like capture, like, you know, any moments with good little sound bites that will be helpful to our audience. Going to these events and capturing these, and like telling people about where they can find this content that we're posting helps our like project a lot. And in a way, it's a really great learning experience of building that audience, like, face to face, really generating that, like, the natural growth of for example, like how you would have to build an audience, like even doing a film or any kind of like project in that sense.
Yeah, no, that's a like great point that you made, because I actually want to know, like, what you guys, like, if you went to school for anything or like studied, you know, film or something else. But I went for film production, and we were taught that that's one of the things that they really emphasize, is to go out, go like mingle, network, whether it's to, you know, support or like promote your work, your project, or just to get to know people. Like and I was like one of the students that would always try to go out, take advantage of the student deals and sometimes free events, and just meet as many people as I could. But I found a lot of people didn't take advantage of that, and there could be, you know, a magnitude of reasons, but it's still something that I try to get people to like just take that advice of like go out, because even if you don't have a project that you're trying to promote or get funding for, it's just getting to meet people, because you never know who you may be working with one day or coming across. And I think we met because of all the events that we would see each other at, and built this like relationship. And
yeah, absolutely. Do you find that like the door is opening up in a lot of areas for you because you've been you have this podcast, and because you're like helping people with this podcast in a way?
That's a great question. Your podcast host is coming up. I can answer. You're asking, has the podcast opened more doors for me?
Totally, yeah.
Totally, yeah. Like, I think the reason I started it was I was working on set, and I loved being able to connect with people, share about sustainability, learn from others, but also teach. And it started during COVID. I started this during COVID when we were in a lockdown, and I couldn't have that same kind of engagement. And so I decided, like, why not continue engaging with other leaders in this space, and share those conversations with the rest of the community, and also answer questions that I always get like daily on basic like sustainability practices and stuff. But because of that, I was able to now connect to people around the world in sustainability, in film, large, like, because of my film background, the podcast focused a lot on film sustainability. And like, I was able to meet so many cool people that I ended up working with eventually, and that, you know, helped in my career, and those relationships I fostered long before I was in the role that I had. I was lucky enough that I already had these relationships. And I think it was because the Sustainable Act allowed me to go out and meet people and form connections. And I find it the same as like if it was like a documentary or a film project. It's a project that allowed you to go out and I would say definitely, especially if you put yourself out there. Maybe that's what like a lot of the fear where that comes from is putting yourself out there. It's scary, but I find the community here is very much like that's my experience. It's been very positive. People are very open to like wanting to talk.
I think in a way when you have a platform that's so specific, that's so niche, well, it's not that niche. It's like it's niche, but it's not like so niche. But I digress. But when you have a platform and people can see like what it is you're interested in and they align with you, they really want to talk to you. They really want to connect with you. That's kind of what I've found. And so that, I guess, has been like a really great learning experience, knowing that like as long as you know what you want and you can find the right people, those people will try to help you because people want to help you. I didn't think people wanted to help me before, but apparently people wanted to help me, and it's
I love that.
Do you want to speak to your experience of people helping you?
I had the opposite experience. People thought I came to take their jobs away because I'm from Toronto.
Right. Yeah, let's talk about that because Andy made a good point about there is a supportive community out there. And I think what your realization was like, people do want to help me. The first thing I thought of is that you have to find those people.
You have to find them. Yeah.
Find the community because there are going to be people that are like not wanting to support you.
Absolutely.
And it's like, don't let that take away your I guess drive or like motivation to continue working in like take space. And I say that to all like people that are coming into the industry too, like take space. You deserve to. And like, but also like I would love to hear more about like your experience of that, I guess, coming into a region that you're not from, like in terms of the BC industry. How has that been? And
it's been quite the long journey. I wasn't welcomed before, and I think it's because I kept finding the wrong people or people with like a very big scarcity mindset, thinking I would take away their jobs, when I was like, I'm here to help you. If you listen, I said help. I'm not here to take away anything from you. And I understand I have what people have called my Toronto energy, so they feel it too much. So as a joke, people have said, go back to Toronto.
who are these people that who's on our hit list? Let's go find them.
No, I think like they just have a journey to grow, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Finding the right people, difficult but important.
Standing true to your values, and then finding those right people, because then they kind of just nurtures your growth and nurtures you as a human being. Because when you're just like being complacent, being like, I'll be friends with anybody, even if they don't align with your values, it's like, well, if they're not really contributing to your life, they might just pull you away from something that could be more important.
That was, wow, that's deep. I think that's such a, like, important wealth of knowledge right there. And I think your platform is fostering that and creating that space. And I think even in the sustainability space, it's been like in the beginning very lonely. Like I felt very lonely because I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me in that space. It wasn't that there was not enough like sustainability folks, but it was people that looked like me or someone that I could talk to or relate or had that similar journey that it just is a filmmaker that just wants to like do something that's right, and once I started to find, and like what you were saying about the podcast opening those doors and allowing you to meet others, I felt that experience of like being able to now meet all these other like-minded individuals that I'm lucky to say that I have a community. And
Speaking about platform, what's been really interesting is that when we've interviewed some people, I think they were in a way shocked that they're getting the opportunity to have a platform. And I think it's also made a difference, and it kind of just shows that like everyone's experience is valid, and it's about providing that platform for other people, because now they're able to share their stories and they didn't realize they had much to share.
That makes my heart so happy. It's like, again, coming back to that, like seeing, like, well, someone listening or watching is like seeing themselves in that. you
Exactly,
know,
yeah.
that you are worthy of, like, you have such an incredible story, and that people do want it, people do care. So that's huge. So thank you for doing what you do.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you for doing
Yeah,
what you're
thank you for
doing.
doing what you're doing.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad that, like, you know, I consider you part of my community, and I'm glad that we are in the same space. I want to go, Nightingale, I want to go to you and your work, because I know you have a lot of amazing initiatives outside of BIPOC Credits. Yeah, if you want, I would
let's
love
go.
to hear more about the work that you're doing. And yeah.
Oh, okay. So Bridging the Gap in Motion, I founded that with my friend Bridget Ogundepe in 2018, and we both really love doing a lot of work with international communities. So we do have connections in Haiti, and then so we decided to have a nonprofit there where we take Canadian youth and we take them to Haiti to create like really great relationships and also show them the slums and also like the beautiful side. Because of the hurricane, everyone kept thinking of Haiti as one thing when there's actually just so much more, and we also document their experiences. And also we have fundraisers, and we just work with the locals to see how else we can help them.
That's amazing. And so how has the work been, you know, your work in that community and that space intersect with the work you're doing with BIPOC Credits?
It definitely just shows me that we just have to hold space for other people and understand everyone has different experiences, and that everyone seriously just wants to help. Because in Haiti, like, if you ask for help, you're just going to get a whole community of people who just want to show up and be there for you. And if you're filming, people are not going to stare at you. They have their own lives. So, I don't know. It's all really fun and shows a lot of collaboration, and just people just want to be there. And it just feels good to help out.
Yeah. Again, I think the theme of this conversation has been community, right?
Yeah.
And like finding that community or building or fostering that community is huge.
Yeah. Also, just be immersed in spaces that you don't understand and just learn.
Yeah. And let's elaborate on that, because I think from my experience, conversations I've had, and I know also in the like Jedi space, a lot of times people are afraid of like asking questions or learning, or because they're afraid of like not knowing enough or being wrong, or, you know, whatever it is.
Looking
maybe
dumb or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah, or maybe afraid of offending someone because they're not familiar. Like, how do we get past that? How do we like open up those conversations to just not be afraid?
I'm actually gonna start this one here. So I think it's like a double-sided conversation, because I think on the one hand, people, including myself, we have to be more like open to people who are learning, and not be so quick on jumping and criticizing them, because that's how we like lose allies. But then on the other hand, it's important to recognize that these people who are making mistakes should be making these mistakes with the mentality and mindset of being open to change, being open to adopting new ideas and new mindsets, as opposed to just sticking with what they know, because that's how you lose allies as well. So like it's both sides of the equation that like need to be responsible for this in a way, and that I think is gonna be like a big learning curve for society, because that's difficult, because sometimes words hurt, right? And that's okay. And so just kind of tiptoeing around this double-sided equation is going to be a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think sometimes you just need to be really pushed in and be fully immersed, make the mistakes, but also just understand, like everyone has to understand, like you did come in with good intentions. So if there are mistakes, like you don't wake up just to be rude to someone.
Yeah.
You wake up to try to learn, and if you make mistakes, then everyone should try to be forgiving and understand. But also, like when you apologize, show changed behavior.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Instead of just, well, sorry, and then just being the way you are. Yeah, no, and I think that's so important what you're saying. Like, hold space for forgiveness, for being able to just like learn and be okay. Like, be okay or comfortable in the like discomfort, I think.
Yeah, because we're living in a society that's like changing so quickly.
Culturally, it's
Culturally, it's changing. Yeah, exactly. And so it's like unfair to expect everyone to be so caught up all the time. And so that's why it's like important to recognize that it's going to take time and it's going to take patience from us.
I think what's also important is like work with people who have an open mind, because even if someone's not fully educated, as long as they have an open mind, the flow just works better that way, I feel like. Whereas if you're just bringing someone who has so much reluctance, that's just more trouble than it's worth. And also being, again, uncomfortable.
I'm sorry. It's like everything at once when every time you're talking to, every time Nightingale starts like saying something super deep, it's like...
What's really important is being comfortable in the discomfort, because it creates room for growth, and also just being okay with rejections, because every wrong no leads to the right yes.
Wow, that's really good. That's really deep. And I think like such another like nugget of wisdom. I think we're getting a lot of those throughout this.
Oh, I forgot to talk about Quarantine Capsule.
Yeah.
Yeah,
really
let's hear
quickly.
more about what that is.
Quarantine Capsule, also known as QQ, is a Asian Canadian digital archive about the Asian Canadian experience during COVID lockdown, because it was just kind of rough, I think, for the community to go through a lot of Asian hate and a lot of discrimination, and also just being locked up at home. Also, just I found it really weird that people in the news would talk about the Asian Canadian experience about being victims when sometimes they weren't even Asian themselves. And also watching a bunch of Asian like war documentaries not being told from an Asian person. So I kind of thought, well, the only thing that isn't taken away is our creativity. So why don't we like create like show positive like experiences through art and just compile that together into a museum. So there's one in Vancouver that is housed in the Emily Carr University of Art and Design's digital archive, and then one in Toronto in Museum of Toronto's digital archive space.
Oh my gosh, amazing. So people can still go check it out.
Yep, and it's all digital because, COVID lockdown.
Yeah, that's
know.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
huge. I'm so glad you brought that up, and that like you've created that, but also like it's so important to the conversation we're having today, and like the work that we're all doing too, in terms of that representation behind the screen being equally, if not more important than what we're putting out. Because that's what I mentioned like earlier in the episode of, I would work on all these major shows that had diversity on screen, but then no writers or like key creatives that was mimicking that, and that made me a little bit uncomfortable at times, because here I was often and I mean, I was on set like many years ago, so I hope that has changed. And I think your podcast is showing that it's changing, because we're seeing more people, having the space to, have that spotlight, that there are a lot of more BIPOC creatives and in those spaces. But anyways, it did make me a little bit uncomfortable to see that we weren't getting that representation behind the screen. And so a lot of the work I started to focus on was storytelling and just like, who's writing, like obviously what we're representing on screen, and integrating climate and BIPOC narratives, but also who's in the writer's room, because people but that oftentimes wasn't considered. So yeah,
There's some bad examples of that for sure. We won't mention any names.
Along with bad examples, I think there's also a lot of good examples that are slowly happening, and also a lot of really good, strong allyship.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of really great movies that have come out in the last couple of years where you see everyone at the forefront, but then you see like that list of allies in the back, and I'm kind of like, my favorite example is Brad Pitt. He's the guy behind Moonlight, Minari. But the thing is, like, you don't hear this guy like at all. He's also behind Women Talking as well. And I'm like, that's kind of like really strong allyship, my guy.
Yeah.
He's just a good producer.
Yeah.
But he doesn't talk about it. Like, I don't see him in the news. He just puts everyone else at front.
I think that's also what makes him a good producer, though. It's like, he's not bragging about himself, because he doesn't need to, obviously. He's Brad Pitt. But like,
Well, the thing is, he has the opportunity to help the film, but instead it's more like, let's help this community. I'm just the guy. I'm just going to help you get to where you want it to be.
Yeah, like knowing when to just take a step back, but also using your privilege to be able to like help, others.
Put it forward.
Yeah. And I didn't know that either. So that's, I'm learning new things too.
Yeah. On what you're saying though, I will say like a part of the reason why we don't see head of departments in these like or like BIPOC head of departments in these roles is on one hand, people like to hire who they know, especially because who they know can do the job right.
Yeah.
Especially because there's so much money residing on it, right? And so because for the longest time this industry has been white male dominated, a lot of the head of departments are like white men, and so now that we're seeing a bit of a shift, it's going to take some time, but like hopefully enough BIPOC crew members will have enough experience to jump into these head of departments roles, and like a production can in a way like know that these they can take a chance on these people, knowing that these films will end up okay and even better, because there's so much benefit of hiring the right people. Like for example, if you hire like a Asian prop or like a Chinese prop person for a Chinese film, then you're not gonna have to go to like one. It's a lot less research you have to do. And you won't have to like go through a cultural consultant, etc., because you like that person could potentially already know about everything that they need to buy. So it saves a lot of time,
and they know where to source it.
And they know where to source it, yeah. And potentially it could be even cheaper because of them knowing where to source it.
Yeah, but also to add to that, sometimes like there are some people who are scared to take that jump to being a head of department.
Totally.
Also, this industry is run sometimes by looking at the resume to say, well, this person has 20 years of experience versus this young lad may have all the knowledge, but they've been in this industry for 2. Right? It's like hard to take that chance on someone.
Yeah. And then on top of that, go ahead.
Continue. I think that if there's an opportunity, maybe if there is someone who isn't of the right ethnicity or culture, maybe start hiring a lot of people who can be assistants of that culture to help out. So that way, like you have people who understand the nuances, but also they gain that experience. And I think it's also just a treat for them to be like, I worked on this kind of film and that was incredible.
Yeah, exactly.
I contributed because I helped my head of department. I get to share my culture.
Yeah, that's such a great point. A barrier for this is that the unions right now, as far as I know, don't have a system in place that encourages this kind of hiring. And in a way, it's difficult for them to do that because it's also limiting jobs from other people who are part of their membership. And so it's a kind of a tricky situation. And at the end of the day, what Nightingale says is the best idea. Just get people who are BIPOC to be more experienced, and that way they can gain trust to be leaders in their roles. That's ultimately, I think, what it comes down to.
Yeah. It's also just hard because there's just a lot of things that happen at the top. Like, for example, selling an indie film. Sometimes you need a name behind it, but sometimes you can't afford the name. And also, film is just not an easy profession to get into. It's also not cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, no, film is not cheap.
Yeah, like the microphones we're holding is already a lot. And now to have 3 of them in one room.
Yeah, but the wealth of knowledge sharing is invaluable.
Yeah.
No, you guys both made really great points, and I think coming back to those like resources like BIPOC Credits, Creative Pathways, like there's amazing BIPOC TV and film. Like they're doing some great work of introducing newcomers to the industry. Whether like, a newcomer doesn't even need to be like you're young and emerging. It's just like maybe you're trying a different department or something that you're just entering a new space. There are a lot of organizations and initiatives out there that are doing the work of, highlighting those BIPOC individuals that are in those spaces, and just stories and experiences, and hopefully connecting people with potential mentors. And again, like, yeah, you have to start somewhere, but regardless of, like, yeah, I think we could talk for another hour about all the other elements, but I think coming back to, there are a lot of resources out there that folks should look into to be able to just find, you know, their network and community. And
I also want to add, though, there are like different studios and production companies are taking initiatives to try to find the right people. And for example, the Directors Guild has they're doing like a thing. Directors Just Watch Us is like where you can be specific about who you want to hire, like what director you want to hire. There you can go by like ethnicity or something like that, and then that way, like studios apparently are asking for these like specific requirements for their directors, and even sometimes for their like crew roles. And so it's not like the change isn't happening, it's just it's gonna take a little bit of time for the system to catch up with the culture.
Yeah, and I know, like, you know, we brought this up earlier too about, it takes time, and I think we need that patience, but also continue like supporting these initiatives, continue like, you know, supporting your fellow, you know, creatives and filmmakers, and fostering those communities until we are in a place, because when we are in that ideal place of whatever our end goal is right now, we're going to continue wanting to evolve and grow, and there's going to be that next goal or target that we want to reach. And so in the meantime, like, don't lose hope, I think, is what I'm feeling is the lesson. And
don't lose hope, and just don't wait, just like be ready. Because like the more and more you keep doing it, sooner or later someone's going to turn your direction. It's like, yep, we've always been ready, instead of just waiting around and
and then when the opportunity comes, you won't be ready for it, and then you'll lose that opportunity.
So don't wait, just keep going.
And I think what I would want to add to that is, if you don't feel like there is something that exists right now, create it. If you don't have that space or that tool or that whatever, if you feel like there's a gap, create it,
or do your research and see if it actually exists.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to, like, again, take up space. I think it's the same goes for like any industry, I feel, as I think like so. Even sustainability. I do want to get into a little bit of sustainability. I know we've been integrating it throughout their conversations, which again is important, but I would love to learn about your connection to sustainability, your maybe personal experiences, or as filmmakers, as creatives, or just day to day, like what does that relationship with sustainability look like or mean to you?
There's a lot, but where do I start? Okay, I'm going to start with this. So I was listening to your podcast, the first episode, I think, talking about how going sustainable can like save you money, especially on like an indie production. Like, I haven't gone into production going like, I'm gonna make this zero waste or anything like that. However, the mindset of like, look, if everyone just brings water bottles, we don't have to buy so much water. Like it just kind of like makes sense. Like, in a way, like there's a little bit of common sense aspect to it.
Like a business case behind it too.
Yeah, exactly. If you think about it, it does make sense. I guess like I do produce films or short films and hopefully features soon. But I do hope to like take that mentality and bring it to those productions.
I feel like when we produce, we try to go as green as we can, like trying to encourage everyone to bring their own water bottles. But then whenever someone does take a water bottle, I start like labeling it. So I'm like, you can't lose it.
Oh man.
I label it. I'm like, you want to take a water bottle? Let me get my Sharpie out. Don't lose it.
I literally have a Sharpie in my little pouch every time I'm on set. Just for that reason.
It's those little things though, and those things add up. People don't realize like how just you being there and being like, we're gonna label it. Like, now you're championing that, you're inspired, because then people oftentimes, I find, like, again, it's like a lot of psychological things. Like, people are like, oh, okay, I this is like the mentality I'm gonna have to, you know, sort of have. This is not a like grab as many water bottles as you want kind of show. This is a like, you know, hold on to your cup. Like, even when I host parties out and we have disposable cups, I usually have a Sharpie out, and people tend to follow that because they know that, okay, that's what you're setting. But sorry, I interrupted.
So beyond set, we also regrow our own green onions.
I love.
Yeah. You literally just have to cut them down to the white stems, and then you just put them in water. And then they just
Garden
regrow.
fact.
Yeah.
Fun fact. Also use your compost bin. I think it's just the little things in life, and also deciding whether or not to take the car or SkyTrain.
Yeah, especially like looking at like where's the filming locations? Is it transit friendly? Can people?
So when we say transit, like we don't mean that train. We mean the SkyTrain.
And like back to the filming locations, finding accessible locations that people like. I'm doing this program right now. It's a youth climate innovative lab, and it's like run by youth, and there's so many cool things that they have incorporated that I'm like, no one has ever done this or considered to like acknowledge this. But they're like, oh, all our meeting locations are going to be accessible by transit, as well as like, you know, if you need to drive, but transit first. And just the little things, even like bring your own container because we'll provide lunch, but we want to save on you know, disposable plates and stuff. And that's something when I was producing short films, I would get my crew to bring their own Tupperware, and if I would always bring extras in case someone forgot or didn't have one, and we would just save mass amounts of like waste, like garbage bags gone, but also money because we would say we didn't have to buy as much supplies.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to be sustainable. It's whether or not, like, you have to just really set the example.
Yeah.
And, you know, the importance of thinking about this is that, like, a lot of the grants nowadays require you to have, like, a sustainability
Plan in your grant writing.
Yeah, like, that's a huge thing now, too. So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, it's, like, even if you don't want to think about it, you kind of have to think about it. So you may as well want to think about it.
Yeah, I think it also adds to the fact that if you go green on set, you're also just teaching people. So I think it's not about like feeling like it's a reluctant thing to like be green, but rather like learning that you can make your passion project, you can make your film, but you can also like not hurt your planet as much to make the next one, and also just teach people. And that's going to be a ripple effect of like you're teaching everyone how to be green for they might be making their next project, and they might learn from you too.
Totally. And also like back to what we said before about not being afraid to being afraid of having to be perfect. Like it's okay to learn as you go. It's okay not to know everything. Like it could be another barrier to why people are not embracing certain things. It's like I don't know all the like terms, or I don't know about, you know, what can be composted. Well, it's okay to learn and not
It's
have
your opportunity to learn. Like, what's wrong with not learning? Learning's fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
Learning is fun.
What would you want to leave our audience with in terms of advice for, you know, whether it's working in film, sustainability, like what is like one piece of advice you'd want to share each?
Understanding that even though people want to be a part of your community, they might not be right for your community at that moment. Doesn't mean that you can't include them later, but especially when we're like coming up, our like, you know, beginning steps, it's important to surround yourself with the right people so you have the right mindset to move forward in the way that you do. And then you can, you know, once you have that platform, then you can bring other people into it and be the leader of it. But when you're still like working out your platform, it's kind of a vulnerable time. And so kind of figuring out yourself what you want your platform to be and like how you want to think is incredibly important, and just finding the right people to lead that path is also important. But once you found those people, just like remember to, you know, appreciate them and stick with them. And there's going to be a lot of noise, but don't let it bog you down, I guess.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So like,
Yeah.
so basically like find community, the people that like align with your values. And I know Nightingale, you mentioned this too before, like those that are really like, aligning with your values in that moment, and then foster that community. Yeah.
And really like take a moment to appreciate those relationships that you have.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like in the go of it all, like it's easy to just forget that, like, you know, good things are happening.
Yeah.
You know, good people. You're around good people.
Celebrate your wins.
Celebrate your wins. Yeah.
Don't be afraid to feel uncomfortable, unless it's like really bad uncomfortable. But you know, like if it's like, and there's sometimes when everything feels very comfortable, find a way to be uncomfortable, because that's your gateway to growing.
I love that. That's so perfectly said. And I think there's just so much wisdom from this episode that I hope people walk away learning at least one new thing, if not multiple. And I just so appreciate you joining me today and sharing your wisdom, and sharing the space with me and being in my community. And anything you would like to end off with? Make sure you're following the BIPOC Credits Podcast.
Make sure you're listening to the Sustainable Act.
See, our community here.
and follow the Instagram and the newsletter, because like there's a lot of resources there. If you're looking for grants, if you're looking for like events, like it's all kind of in those two platforms, and Nightingale does a great job in like putting it all together. So like that's a free resource that's available. So really use it, because that's really how like we can all rise up together.
I love it. The powerful duo here. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited, and I'm so excited and looking forward to all your new episodes that come out, and continue supporting you. And
in the meantime, catch our old episodes.
Yes.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone.
And then, oh my god. The train's like, not today.
The trains are like, no, Nightingale's dropping wisdom. Stop.
I know, every time you talk, every time it's on you.